Has a proposal ever happened right there in the barbershop? First, you gotta understand the shop. It's called Cuts on 14th. This tiny little place wedged between a laundromat and a check cashing spot, 4 chairs, one TV bolted up in the corner that's always playing either sports or a telenovela depending on who grabbed the remote first. I've been going there since I was 19. My guy Rico's been cutting my hair for 6 years. He knows my head better than I know my own head. He knows when I'm stressed because I start picking at my cuticles in the chair. He knows my order at the taco spot 2 doors down. That's the kind of relationship you build with a barber if you stick with the same shop long enough. It stops being a transaction and starts being something closer to family, except family that also judges your fade real hard if you let it grow out too long. Dana and I had been together 3 years. We met at a bar trivia night. She got mad at me because I answered a question wrong on purpose to be funny and it cost our team the round. And somehow that turned into 4 hours of talking and then 3 years of my life. She's the kind of person who remembers the names of people's dogs. She cried at my cousin's wedding and she wasn't even related to anybody there. I knew probably 8 months in that I wanted to marry her, but I'm the kind of guy who needs everything to be perfect before I do anything. Which, if you know me, is a real character flaw because nothing is ever perfect. Ever. That's not how life works. But it took me a stupidly long time to learn that lesson. She's also just like a genuinely good person in the small ways nobody notices unless they're paying attention. She tips extra when the waiter looks like they're having a rough shift. She keeps granola bars in her car for the guys who stand at the off-ramp with cardboard signs, not because she thinks it fixes anything, just because it's something. When my dad was in the hospital for his hip surgery last year, she showed up with a crossword book and sat with him for 2 hours on a Tuesday afternoon when I couldn't get off work. And afterward, he told me on the phone, real serious, "Don't mess this one up," my own father, giving me relationship advice unprompted. That's the effect she has on people. I'm not like that, not naturally. I have to think about being thoughtful. It doesn't just flow out of me the way it does for her. So a lot of my thing with wanting the proposal to be perfect wasn't really about impressing her, if I'm honest with myself. It was about proving to myself that I could match the level of care she puts into everything without even trying. Which, again, dumb, because trying to manufacture effortless is a contradiction. But nobody tells you that when you're 26 and terrified of getting this one thing wrong. I'd been sitting on the ring for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of it burning a hole through the little pocket in my backpack where I kept it wrapped in an old sock so she wouldn't find it if she ever went digging for something. I had this whole vision, right? Some sunset thing on the pier, maybe a photographer hiding in the bushes, the whole 9 yards. But every time I tried to actually plan it, it felt fake. It felt like something out of a commercial. And Dana hates that stuff, she's told me 100 times. If anybody ever does one of those big public flash mob proposals near her, she's leaving the guy on principle. So one random Tuesday, I'm in Rico's chair getting a lineup before my cousin's wedding that weekend, and I'm telling him about the pier idea, and he just starts laughing at me. Not mean, just like genuinely laughing. Clippers still buzzing near my ear. He goes, "Bro, you've been coming here for 6 years. You met this girl at a bar. Why are you out here trying to be Nicholas Sparks?" And I go, "So what am I supposed to do, propose in a barbershop?" And he just shrugs like it's the most obvious thing in the world. He goes, "Why not? She's picked you up from here like 4 times. She knows Leo's name. She brought you soup that one time you had the flu and slept in chair 3 for an hour because you didn't want to go home and get her sick." Which, okay, fair. That did happen, and it's honestly one of my favorite memories of her. She was standing there in the doorway with a grocery bag of soup and crackers looking annoyed and worried at the same time, and Leo gave her a whole speech about the shop's return policy on soup deliveries just to make her laugh. That's the thing Rico said that actually got me. He said the pier is a place you're borrowing for one night to look nice. The shop is a place that's already got 3 years of your actual life in it. And once he said it out loud like that, I couldn't unhear it. It felt right in a way the pier never did. He kept going too, once he saw he had me. Said something like, "Real people don't fall in love in beautiful places. They fall in love in waiting rooms and parking lots and grocery store checkout lines. And the beautiful place stuff is just what you rent afterward to convince other people it was a big deal." I don't know if Rico's ever been in love himself. He's cagey about his personal life, but the man's cut hair for 20-some years in the same 4 chairs, and he's watched a lot of people walk through that door at their best and their worst. So I figure he's earned the right to a theory or two. I called my mom that night, didn't tell her the details, just kind of talked it out loud at her. And she said the same thing basically, just in Spanish and with more sighing. She said something like, "Mijo, you've been overthinking a haircut, and the woman loves you in your sweatpants eating cereal for dinner. She is not going to care about a pier." I hung up feeling about 90% sure, which honestly for me is a personal record. So we cooked up a plan. Dumb, simple, held together with tape, literally. I told Dana I needed her opinion on a haircut before the wedding, which, real talk, is not even a lie. She has genuinely good taste and has saved me from bad decisions before. There was an almost mullet situation in 2022 we don't talk about. I told her to come by around 5 on Saturday. Rico taped the ring box to the underside of the cape, right at the spot where it drapes over my lap, wrapped in a little baggie so it wouldn't slide, and he practiced pulling the cape off with one clean snap so the box would land right in my hand instead of flying across the shop like a hockey puck, which we actually tested twice with an empty box first, because I was terrified of it going wrong in front of everybody. Saturday comes. I am sweating through my shirt before I even walk in the door. Dana shows up right on time in this yellow sundress, hair still a little damp from the shower, completely unbothered, chewing gum, texting her sister about brunch plans plans for the next morning. She has zero idea. Zero. She sits down in the waiting chairs next to Ms. Odessa, who's there every single Saturday getting her grandson's haircut, and Dana starts talking to the kid about his Pokemon backpack like she's known him her whole life, because that's just who she is. Rico sits me down in chair 2, puts the cape on. I can feel the little rectangle of the ring box against my thigh through the fabric, and I swear my heart is going so hard, I think Ms. Odessa can hear it from across the room. He starts the haircut totally normal, small talk, asking Dana what she thinks about a fade versus a taper for the wedding. She's leaning forward, giving her real honest opinion. Completely locked in. No clue. The shop smells the way it always smells. That mix of aftershave and hot clipper oil, and the coffee Leo keeps burning in that ancient percolator nobody's replaced since I started coming here. Somebody's radio app is playing old school R&B low in the background because the telenovela hasn't started yet. Ms. Odessa's grandson is swinging his legs off the waiting chair, bored, asking her every 90 seconds if it's his turn yet. 2 other regulars, guys I know by face but not by name, are half watching a muted highlight reel on the TV and half watching Dana talk with her hands, which she does when she's genuinely into a topic, and I remember thinking, sitting there, this is just an ordinary Saturday. This is just a regular 5 o'clock, and in 20 minutes it's going to be the biggest day of my life, and none of these people know it yet except Rico. There was something almost funny about that. Sitting in the most normal possible room feeling like a bomb about to go off, I kept catching Rico's eye in the mirror. He'd give me this tiny nod every couple minutes, like, still good, still on track, hang in there. At one point he asked Dana to hold the little travel mirror up so I could see the back. Completely unnecessary. We both knew it. But it was his way of getting her hands busy, and her attention split so I could catch my breath for a second without her clocking how sweaty I'd gotten. The man's a professional in more ways than one. And then it goes wrong. Not like romantic comedy wrong. Actually wrong. The power goes out whole block. Just click. Gone. Dark. The AC unit groaning to a stop. The telenovela cutting out mid-scene. Everybody in the shop going, oh, at the same time like we're at a fireworks show. Turns out later a transformer blew 2 streets over. Took out like 6 blocks for almost 40 minutes. At the time all we knew was the shop went dark, and Rico still had the clippers buzzing, and now they just died in his hand, and half my head is done and half isn't. And I am standing there in the near dark, with a ring taped to a cape and absolutely no idea what to do, because my whole plan was built around a clean cape pull, moment with good lighting, and now I've got emergency exit signs and everybody's phone flashlights bouncing around the room. Dana's first instinct, because she is who she is to help. She's up out of her chair checking on Ms. Odessa's grandson, who's a little spooked. She's got her phone flashlight out pointed at the floor so nobody trips. She's asking Leo if the register's gonna be okay, completely in caretaker mode, completely not thinking about herself or me or anything else. Meanwhile, I'm frozen half sideways in the chair, with my heart absolutely rioting in my chest, because I don't know if this is the moment or if the moment just died with the power grid. Somebody's phone starts playing a flashlight app and setting it face up on the counter so it throws light at the ceiling, which actually helps a little, casts this weird soft glow across everybody's faces like we're all sitting around a campfire instead of a barbershop. Leo is on the phone with the electric company already, pacing by the window saying, no, I understand. I'm just asking for an estimate, in that particular tone people use when they already know the answer's going to be unhelpful. One of the regulars, I don't know by name, cracks a joke about how this is what he gets for skipping the shop for 2 months. Like the universe personally punished him, and a couple people actually laugh, which breaks some of the tension in the room, even though nobody but Rico and me knows there was tension to break. I remember specifically the sound of the AC dying. Not just going quiet, but this slow winding down groan, like the whole building exhaling, and then just silence and everybody's breathing and the kid asking one more time if it was his turn yet, oblivious. Because to a 7-year-old, a blackout is basically the best thing that's ever happened to a Saturday. Rico leans down next to me in the dark and just goes, real quiet. You want to wait for the lights or you want to do it now? And I don't even know why. But something about the chaos, something about her standing there in the dark taking care of a scared kid instead of worrying about her ruined evening plans. Something about that being exactly who she is, even in a crisis, made the decision for me. I didn't want the pretty version anymore. I wanted this one, so I said, do it now. Rico pulls the cape. The box lands in my hand exactly like we practiced, thank God. One thing actually went right. I stand up, half a haircut, hair clippings all over my shirt, phone flashlight swinging around like a bad disco, and I say her name into the dark, and she turns around with her own flashlight still pointed at the kid's shoes, and I open the box. Nobody can even see it that well. That's the part that kills me looking back. I open this ring box in almost total darkness, and for a solid 3 seconds, nobody, including her, can actually tell what's happening. And Ms. Odessa's grandson goes, is that a phone? Which, in hindsight, is the funniest sentence anyone has ever said in the history of proposals. Dana finally gets it. I watch it land on her face even in the dark, this shift, and she puts her hand over her mouth and her flashlight drops and rolls under chair 3 and just lights up the whole floor sideways. And she says, are you serious right now? Not even like a question, more like an accusation, and I say, yeah, I'm serious. And I ask her, and the whole shop, every single person in there, Ms. Odessa, the kid, Leo, 2 other customers I don't even know the names of, all of them just go dead silent waiting. She says yes before I even finish the sentence. Cuts me right off. Says it twice actually. First one quiet, almost to herself, then louder like she needed to hear herself say it to believe it. And then everybody in that dark, powerless barbershop just loses it quiet, clapping, Leo banging on the counter, Ms. Odessa saying something in Spanish I didn't catch, but I'm pretty sure it was a blessing, her grandson still asking if that was a phone. Here's the twist though, the actual gut punch part, the part I didn't see coming. While everybody's celebrating and I'm hugging Dana with clippings still stuck to my sweaty neck, she pulls back and she's crying and laughing at the same time, and she reaches into her purse and she pulls out a little folded piece of paper and she hands it to me, hands shaking, and she says she'd written me a letter 3 weeks ago, just in case she ever worked up the nerve to ask me first, because she'd been thinking about it too. She just hadn't figured out how, and she'd started carrying the letter around everywhere so that if the moment ever presented itself, she'd have the words ready instead of freezing up. I read it later that night by candlelight because the power still wasn't back. It wasn't a proposal exactly, more like a promise. All the reasons she wanted a life with me, little specific things. How I always give her the bigger half of whatever we're splitting. How I learned to make her mom's rice recipe even though it took me 4 tries and 1 small kitchen fire. How she felt safest on the nights we did absolutely nothing at all. I'm not a crier normally. I cried reading that letter. There was one line near the bottom that got me the worst. She'd written that she used to be scared of the kind of love that needed everything to look a certain way. Because she grew up watching her parents perform a marriage for other people that fell apart the second nobody was watching. And that what she wanted instead was the kind of love that could survive bad lighting. Her words, bad lighting. She wrote that 3 weeks before the power ever went out. Before either of us had any idea how literal that sentence was about to get. I read it maybe 6 times that night, just sitting on the edge of the bed with a candle burning down on the nightstand. And every time I got to that line, I had to stop for a second. We didn't even make it back to my place right away that first night, actually. We just sat in her car outside the shop for like 45 minutes after everybody cleared out. Hazard lights on because it was that dark on the whole block. Just talking, replaying the whole thing, laughing about the kid asking if the ring box was a phone, laughing about the flashlight rolling under the chair. And at some point she got quiet and just put her hand flat on my chest and said she could still feel my heart going crazy fast even an hour later. And I told her it hadn't really calmed down since she said yes, and I wasn't sure it ever fully would. We finished the haircut 2 days later. Once the power situation got sorted and Rico had time to fix the uneven mess on the side of my head that I'd been walking around with for 2 full days like an idiot. Half-done fade, engagement ring on her finger. Everybody at the wedding that weekend asking what happened to my hair before they even asked about the ring. People ask me now if I regret not doing the pier thing, the sunset, the photographer in the bushes. I don't, not even a little, because if the power hadn't gone out, if everything had gone exactly according to plan, clean and lit and perfect, I never would have found out in that exact moment what she's actually like when things fall apart. Calm, present, taking care of a stranger's kid before she even knew her own life was about to change. That's the version of her I proposed to, not the version in perfect lighting. The real one, in the dark, with a rolled under flashlight lighting up the floor, in a barbershop that's had more of our actual life in it than any pier ever would have. We're getting married in the spring. Rico's doing my hair the morning of, obviously, and he already told me if the power goes out that day too, he's blaming me personally for jinxing every electrical grid within a 5-mile radius of our relationship. Dana kept the letter. I kept the sock the ring used to live in, which is a weird thing to keep, I know, but I like remembering the 6 weeks of it, just sitting there in the dark of my backpack, waiting for a night that ended up going nothing like I planned and somehow turned out better because of it.